Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Money Matters podcast. It is Mailbag Monday. I am your host, Jack. Ladies and gentlemen, off we go. The title today is Bitcoin Smells Blood. Money printers, hear that? Money printers getting turned on, ready to go burr, ready to go burr. What time is it, you might ask? Is it 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Pacific? I heard that's when Mailbag Mondays go on. Yes, all of that is true. However, our time that we keep on this is block time. It is block height 893,422 today on Monday, April 21st, 2025. I got a Bitcoin price of 87,170 as I'm speaking into my computer in this big ol' empty closet. You know the deal. You know the deal. Bitcoin's market cap is up from around $1.5 trillion to now $1.73 trillion asset class. Ladies and gentlemen, look, the chat fired up. We've got an all-time high of you waiting in. Ooh, they're saying I'm on the wrong mic, and that is correct. Now I'm on the right mic. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got an all-time high of those of you waiting in the lobby, those of you tuning in live. If you wouldn't mind liking the episode, subscribing, we've blown through 22,000 subscribers on YouTube towards the goal of 100,000 on the year. I appreciate all the love, all the support. These are a ton of fun. Once a week, I'm going to riff, go crazy, rant, kick, and scream about what's going on with Bitcoin, the world, and the macro environment. And you guys have been so supportive. I really appreciate it. So if you don't mind liking and subscribing, it would mean the world. And with that, we're off to the races. I'm going to go on my one rant. I'm going to answer your Q&A after. My rant today. Listen, today, for those of you that listen on the podcast waves, those of you that are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whatever that is, today's going to be a visual episode, okay? So I'm going to do the best I can to explain and annotate with words the visuals that I will be sharing. But I highly encourage you, if you can, you go watch this on YouTube, whether you're listening live, whether you're listening later. I'm going to share my screen. I've prepared a lot of visuals today to walk through Bitcoin's correlation to the NASDAQ, correlation to stocks starting to split. And I want to show you guys what's on my mind, what I think is happening, and show some data to back it. So again, I'm going to try my best to annotate with words and be very descriptive and artistic, almost a little poetic. Why not? For those listening on the podcast waves, but it might be harder to follow than if you were to join us on YouTube at some point in your free time and view the visuals for yourselves. Okay, what's on my mind? What's today's rant? Today's rant is, if you are a frequent Money Matters listener, first of all, shout out to you. We love you. But if you are, you know that I've made a prediction this year that Bitcoin would diverge from its correlation with the stock market, and it would start to trade more like gold. It would start to trade as the independent asset it is. It does not have earnings. It does not have a CEO. It does not have a product. Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is its own monetary policy. It's its own instrument. It's a commodity-like portfolio asset. It should not necessarily be correlated to a basket of stocks. However, it has been. I've talked about why I believe that is such the case. And I've said on this podcast and made a definitive prediction that this year, in the year 2025, we would start to see that become less correlated to the stock market. It would start to trade independently. It would go catch up to gold's performance and actually exceed gold's performance. Over the last week, since I talked to you all, that has started to play out. So first, let me share my screen of an article that was published on April 10th, 2025 by The Economist that was then taken down. Okay. Title of the article: America's financial system came close to the brink. Chaotic markets threaten to trigger a full-blown crisis. Okay. We are viewing this screen share on archive.today. This is an archived version of what was an article published by The Economist that was taken down by The Economist. So we've been saying on this show that these financial markets are buckling at the knees. They're going to collapse. You've got dollar down, bonds down, stock market down, mayhem, trouble, alert, alert. You've had the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury saying, we're focusing on the 10-year, we're focusing on the 10-year, we're focusing on the 10-year. And what have we said the last few episodes? Hey, buddy, wake up. The 10-year's going the wrong way. You're going wrong way down to one way, brother. Wrong way down to one way. The 10-year's going up. The 10-year's going up. The stock market's going down. Bad news. Danger, danger. Okay. Now, The Economist wrote a piece admitting all of this and saying this is the U.S. financial system is about donezo. We are in serious trouble. Now, they since have taken that down. Shout out to archive.today. So just to set the tone, the U.S. financial system is in serious trouble. Serious trouble. Now, on to my next screen share. What we've seen since is financial authorities saying they will print the money. Now, if you're an avid listener to the show, I know some of this is repetitive, but I'm laying the groundwork in the context. Trust me, hang with me. This is from the Financial Times. Federal Reserve, quote, absolutely, end quote, ready to help stabilize market if needed, top official says. Guys, what we've seen since 2019 is if the Treasuries market gets unruly and gets out of whack, financial authorities will immediately step in and provide liquidity, print the money, support the system. Only way out is through. The only way out is through. Don't care what anyone has to tell you, where they went to school, what they do for work, who their mom or dad is. None of it matters. They have to print the money. As soon as the Treasury market gets out of control, they scream, and they publish in all media, we will print the money. Next, now this is a even bigger deal. Now I'm sharing a Bloomberg article titled, Bessent says Treasury has a big toolkit if needed for bonds. Now, we just heard from the Federal Reserve, the central bank that prints the dollars, okay, that they have the Treasury markets back. Now we're hearing from the Treasury Department, the Secretary of the Treasury, saying the Treasury has the tools to print the money, okay? So now you're hearing from the Fed and the U.S. Treasury that when it comes to the bond market, when it comes to the sovereign debt crisis that Jack and the Money Matters podcast has been screaming about in this big empty closet, and everyone's like, is that guy 12 years old? Is he 30 years old? What's going on? I've been screaming sovereign debt crisis. Treasury market is unstable. None of this is going to work. They have to print the money. Buy Bitcoin while you can. Kicking and screaming and kicking and screaming. Now we're seeing it in the headlines. Okay, next thing I want to share with you guys. So 1, we've got the Fed saying they'll print the money. 2, we've got the Treasury saying they'll print the money. Now what's 3? 3 is the U.S. banking system will help print the money. Treasury explores whether to ease capital rule on U.S. bonds. This is the SLR. We've been saying this on this show over and over and over and over again. There is a rule that requires banks to post necessary collateral to use leverage to participate in the bond market. They are looking to revoke and change that rule so that banks can buy unlimited amount of dog shit debt for the U.S. government without posting any collateral. This makes them unlimited buyers supplying unlimited demand for a product that nobody wants, which is lending money to someone who's already $36 trillion in debt. Okay, so recap. The Economist comes out and says, we're screwed. The U.S. financial system almost just collapsed. The Fed then comes out and says, we will print the money. The Treasury Secretary then comes out and says, I will print the money also. The US banking system then also comes out and says, please help us participate in printing the money. Printing the money. Now, last one I want to share as far as news that's telling you exactly what's going to happen is from CNBC. Title: Fed Governor Waller sees tariff inflation as, quote, transitory, end quote, in tush-push comparison. I couldn't believe they're using this transitory word again. They just got crucified for using the transitory word through COVID inflation. Crucified. It's transitory. It's transitory. It's transitory. Oh, wasn't transitory. It broke every inflation record in America. Wasn't transitory. Either you're a liar or you're stupid. Either way, it's dangerous. Okay? They're back. Fed Governor Waller sees tariff inflation as transitory. First of all, let's break this down. It's an admission that tariffs are inflationary. Let's not let that slide. Embedded in this statement is that tariffs are inflationary. They're just saying it's transitory. By the way, guys, their admission of saying it's transitory, all they're saying is we're going to print the money anyway. We're not taking it seriously. It's transitory. It'll pass. We don't give a shit. That's what they're saying. Okay? So let's recap. The Economist says, little does anyone know the U.S. financial system was about to fall apart. But we knew on the Money Matters podcast, we knew because we've been saying dollar down, bonds down, stock market down. This isn't working. Mayhem, mayhem. They're going to have to print the money. We knew. We knew. The world didn't know. We knew. The world didn't know. Economist says the U.S. financial system is about to fall apart. Then the Fed comes out and says, we will print the money. The Treasury comes out and says, we will also print the money. The U.S. banking says, change the rule so that we can also print the money. Then the Fed says, oh yeah, in this worry about inflation because of tariffs, transitory, AKA we don't give a shit. We're still going to print the money. Okay? I often say financial markets aren't that complicated if you're paying attention. Okay? All you got to do is own something they can't make more of and pay attention. Now, this is what I wanted to show you guys that I prepared for this episode. So here's a little bit of story time. So I got this view on my phone. Here, let me I sent myself a screenshot of it so that I can share it with you guys. So everyone knows, hopefully, I'm the founder and CEO of Strike, this Bitcoin company. We sell Bitcoin, store your Bitcoin there. We've got a wallet. Now we've got, as we're rolling out, collateralized Bitcoin loans. And so I have a view on my phone that looks like this, okay? And over the weekend, I was sending somebody a text message. I was opening my phone very casually, not checking the markets on purpose, but I have this view where I have the weather, I have the stock market, and then I have Bitcoin at the top. That is my Strike iOS widget, okay? So if everyone downloads Strike, probably the biggest and best Bitcoin financial services in the world at this point. So this is my phone. What I noticed while I was looking was, hold on a second. Bitcoin's up, the stock market's down. And I had been calling that this would start to diverge at some point this year, and it wouldn't be this correlated, right? And over the weekend, I was like, holy crap, is this happening now? Okay, so this was the view. Again, guys, it's not that complicated. It's simple. I'm here on this show to make it simple, make it accessible, humanize this stuff for you guys. So in the bottom right, you see the stock market arrows pointing down. But if you look up at Bitcoin here, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Bitcoin was up. How do I do this? There we go. Bitcoin up 2.5%, stock market down. Okay. Now, what I then did is I started to look up who's got tools for me to track the Bitcoin's correlation to the QQQ. That's what I wanted to see. Like, how correlated or uncorrelated is it? How is it moving? When did the divergence start? I couldn't find a good source. So what I did is I went onto TradingView and I built a little thing myself, and my own results surprised me a lot. Okay, so this is what I built last night while I was watching the NBA playoffs. Let me walk you guys through it. So what you're looking at up top is the Bitcoin price. Okay. So this is just BTC USD. We're currently at $87,000. Okay. Makes sense? Now, what you're looking at below is Bitcoin's correlation to the QQQ. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. Let me set some definitions for you. This number down below, its correlation to the stock market, ranges between 1 and -1. Okay. 1 means very strong correlation. Wherever the stock market goes, Bitcoin goes, or vice versa. -1 means inversely correlated, where if one were to go up, the other would go down. If one were to go down, the other would go up. Okay. 1, extremely correlated. They follow each other. -1, inversely correlated. They run away from each other. 0 means no correlation. When I pulled this up, I surprised myself because, yes, Bitcoin at times is very correlated to the QQQ. However, at other times, Bitcoin has no correlation to the QQQ. And this seems to be a pattern. Okay. Bitcoin rests and sits at just about as correlated as it can get to the stock market. And then it decorrelates and separates itself pretty dramatically and then returns. Pretty dramatically and then returns. Right? Are you guys able to see this blue line? Now, what does this tell me? What this tells me is Bitcoin, like the stock market, has just gone up. It's been one of the better expressions. In my opinion, Bitcoin's the best expression of currency debasement. The more money they print, the better Bitcoin performs. That's why it's been the best performing asset in human history, especially during this currency debasement period, because you can't make any more of it. It's the scarcest thing. It means it's the best performing thing. However, when it decorrelates, these are around macro events. I've often said that Bitcoin is the most accessible smoke alarm to fiat liquidity. It smells blood first. It smells bullshit first. When you have an asset that is an entirely free market, there's no circuit breakers. There's no market open and market close. There's no regulator overseeing it. There's no one saying you can or can't buy it. Bitcoin is a global fiat smoke alarm, accessible to everyone. It moves first. So when I saw this and I realized these peaks and valleys of correlation with the stock market all had to do with macro events that were happening in the real world. Okay, so let me pull up my notes here because I jot them down. Okay, let's do COVID, let's say 2020. Okay, mid to late 2020, the correlation was rising because of COVID. Everything sold off, right? Brief correlated spike, massive QE, zero rates, trillions in fiscal stimulus. Everything went up in the COVID era. This microphone went up in price. Your eggs went up in price. Bitcoin went up in price. Stocks went up in price. Okay. Now, late 2021, early 2022, right here. You guys see this dip right here? The correlation faded. Bitcoin went from severely correlated to not correlated at all because it smelled blood. This was as the Fed stopped printing money, started the greatest rate hike ever. FTX went under, Silicon Valley Bank went under. All of that happened. Bitcoin smelled it first. Bitcoin smelled it first. So what these giant uncorrelated dips, so this is Bitcoin dipping from being extremely correlated to the stock market to not correlated at all. It starts running, it starts moving because when you have a truly free market, it's going to tell you the truth. I think of Bitcoin as a truth machine. Okay? There's no one in the way. Bitcoin is pure humanity. There's no company, government, corporation, market open closes, circuit breakers in the way from humans pricing time and energy globally. That Bitcoin's truthful. It's trying to tell you something. Okay? So Bitcoin knew of the greatest rate hike ever, tight monetary conditions, and that financial institutions would fail due to tight liquidity in the bond market before, and it decorrelated. It led the stock market down. FTX failing told us that some big bank was going to fail. Bitcoin leading the way down. We knew the stock market was going to follow. Okay. Now, 2022 to 2023, correlation spikes again. Okay. It's because the Fed actually starts hiking, QT resumes. Everything is correlated again because everything goes down for this period. Now, late 2023, early 2024, Bitcoin decorrelated slightly again because it knew that Yellen started printing money. Again, it's a fiat liquidity smoke alarm. As soon as Bitcoin smells blood, it smells the money printers, it starts to run and it decorrelates, it leads. Eventually, guys, Bitcoin and the stock market have to have some correlation because everything's going up, right? If they print enough money, everything goes up, right? So you can't have no correlation to the stock market because everything, like this microphone in the stock market have correlation. This water bottle in the stock market have correlation. My fucking iPhone in the stock market have correlation because they're printing so much money. Everything is more valuable in dollar terms. But what's interesting to me is when it shows little periods of not being correlated because it's a more free market. It's a smarter market. Okay. Now, again, this severe decorrelation event where it went from extremely correlated to no correlation, that was right around the election. Okay, so these recent run-ups, Bitcoin was at 30,000 in late 2023. Bitcoin's correlation went from a 1 extremely to a 0, not at all, and it ran first before the stock market. Okay, again, Bitcoin went from near a 1 correlation to a negative correlated. When was that? Right before the election. Bitcoin knew who was going to win the election before anyone. It's a truth machine. Free markets tell you the truth. When I pulled this up and I saw Bitcoin had just went from a near 1 correlation and it's now down to a 0.53, my eyes are glued to this thing now. Is Bitcoin going to continue to fall, go below 0.5 and head towards 0 again? Because what is that telling us? To me, that tells me that Bitcoin smells blood. It smells the money printer. Somehow it's reading the Financial Times. It's reading Bloomberg. It's reading The Economist, and it's seeing fiat liquidity is around the corner. Currency units are about to be abundant. They have to print the money. Now, guys, being more practical, Bitcoin can't read an article, right? It's a protocol. It's bytes of data. But more practically, if they start making monetary conditions easier, if there is more fiat sloshing around, the market that's most sensitive to that, the markets that's going to move first and perform the best is Bitcoin because it's the most free market and it's the most fixed market. That's it. Period. End of conversation. No debate. So when I saw Bitcoin start to decorrelate and it went from a 1 to a 0.53 and I made this chart, I was like, oh my goodness. Bitcoin's not necessarily correlated to the stock market or not correlated to the stock market. It's both. And it chooses its times to decorrelate and lead when massive world events are happening. And it affirms my suspicion and my predictions. This is slight validation. We're not there yet, but it's very slight validation that Bitcoin will decouple this year. It will lead the stock market up. It smells the money printer. And we are about to go way higher. I'm seeing people say, can the blue line be a different color? Yes, let's figure this out together. If you guys have questions on this, here we go. What color do you guys want? Let's make it orange. There we go. Ha ha ha. Bitcoin orange. If you guys have questions on this, please leave them in the chat. I do Q&A after my rant. But this gives me validation. Bitcoin decorrelates from the stock market. It decorrelates from this risk idea because it leads. It's a truth machine. It's the only free market we have left. It's the only fixed supply market in the history of mankind. The only other asset of yours you can't make any more of, no matter how hard you try, is your time. Time in Bitcoin, only fixed supply. Everything else, if there's enough demand, you'll make more. So Bitcoin is talking to us. It's telling us something. It's starting to decorrelate. In my opinion, it smells the money printer. It smells the Fed, the Treasury, and the U.S. banking system saying, we almost crashed the economy. We are coming to save the day and print the money. Print the money. I've been saying it on the show over and over and over and over again. Bitcoin will decorrelate from the stock market. Bitcoin will trade like gold. Bitcoin will catch up to gold. Bitcoin will outperform gold this cycle. Be patient, stay humble, stack sats. Woo! I'm fired up. What can I say? It's happening. What a time to be alive. Thank you, Satoshi. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen. Let me get myself back into, how do I do this? Oh no. Oh no. Can you guys see I don't know how to do this. In any event. Oh, there we go. Oh, I'm back. Back like I never left. All right. That's a half hour of a rant. Hopefully made sense. Let me know if you guys have questions. I hope it was visible. I'm a junior podcaster. This is not what I do professionally. This is what I do for fun. So I apologize if I can, post screenshots to Twitter afterwards if you guys couldn't really see it. But let's do some Q&A. Let me make anything I explained that wasn't clear more clear. Here we go. Macro questions. Why has gold displayed more decoupling and more validation over Bitcoin? I kind of touched on this, but I'm happy to reinforce. So in my opinion, what gold is pricing in is a new monetary order. Central banks already own gold. Governments already own gold. So it's a familiar asset that would be neutral, that would be in a post-dollar world reserve currency. And so in my opinion, all that's happening is people are starting to price in this idea that gold is going to be more relevant and more valuable in whatever future realignment of global economic trade is going to go down. There's just no doubt that things are changing, right? There's no doubt. Now, what's unclear is what they're changing to, how and when. Gold is getting a bid because there's a really serious chance gold's going to be more a part of the global story than it has been in recent decades. That's all. Also, listen, right now, the only way out is if real yields are negative, meaning if they put the interest rates below inflation. If everything around you is getting 5% more expensive a year and they're paying you 3% to lend them money, then you're making 3% on the money that you're lending, but everything else around you is getting 5% more expensive. So your real return is negative. Does that make sense? That's the only way they can do it. Now, it's safe to say that gold's real return is zero. Okay. And you say zero, that's not a very high number. Yeah, but zero is better than a negative number. And so for traditional investors are probably thinking to themselves, I don't know about this Bitcoin thing. This is the problem too I have with shitcoins is they just muddy the water. They make everything like we have a gift in Bitcoin. We have one of the most promising technologies to save our species, propel our species into a prosperous era. And you've got these people saying, no, buy shitcoin, Dogecoin, Luna coin, garbage. So if you're a traditional investor, you say, I don't understand this blockchain crypto stuff. I do know that gold has, zero real yield. And right now, the US is about to serve up a fat slice of negative real yield. I'll take zero over negative any day of the week. That's, in my opinion, what's happening. I think the money printers come on. I think Bitcoin decorrelates. I think it smells blood in the water. I think it's the smartest asset in the world because it's the freest asset in the world. I think it catches up. I think it outperforms. You said that Trump said to foreign investors like China, quote, take your money and go away, end quote. And that's why the stock market crashed. It's one of the reasons. How can Trump force people to sell their stocks and leave with their money? I mean, it's pretty simple. Trump cannot say something like, take your Bitcoin and sell it and get out of here, because Bitcoin is not Trump's to own and control and regulate and allow who has access and who doesn't. But that's not true for the US stock market. The United States gets to determine who gets a stock account, who can buy and sell US stocks. So if Trump says, we don't like your investment in our country, take your money out of our financial markets and kick rocks, then that's what's going to happen. And just a reminder of how we got there and why this is the case. Listen, the US runs a trade deficit. They have to because they're the world reserve currency. When you are the world reserve currency, what you're exporting is not actual materials. You're exporting the currency. Everyone constantly needs dollars because it is what we globally trade in. And your job is to export them the dollars. And what you import is the actual stuff that your citizens need to live. They need oil. They need energy. They need food. They need raw materials. They need metals. Correct? Following? Cool. So the US has been running a trade deficit persistently for a very long time. Okay. Countries like China have been running in a trade surplus. They export the real stuff Americans need. China made this microphone for me. China made this iPhone. China probably made my lights. China probably made that mirror. China probably made these cupboards. China probably made my desk. China probably made these windows. China probably made my shirt. China makes my entire life, exports it to the United States, and imports dollars. Now they're operating in a surplus. They're profitably trading globally. The United States is unprofitably trading globally. Now, when China gets these profits from trade, if they were to take, so their trade surplus on an annual basis is about $1 trillion. Okay, so China is running a profitable trading business that makes about $1 trillion a year. So let's put that in perspective. Now, China has profits. What do they do with the profits? A logical person would think they should give it to the homeless in China. They should build housing in China. They should invest it in China. If they invest their profits in China, it strengthens the local economy. It strengthens the currency, which weakens their ability to run the business and export stuff. In order to have a competitive export business, you need to have a weaker currency because you get cheap labor. If you're paying people in a currency that's dog shit, the labor is cheaper than if you have to pay people in a currency that everyone values. Following? So if they take profits, invest it locally, it strengthens the currency, which weakens the export and ruins the whole plan. Following. So what do they do with the money? They have all this money they're making. Where do they put it? Well, they dump it back into the United States. So the US is exporting dollars and they're importing a few things, goods and services, they're importing real stuff, raw materials, food, energy, oil, all the things, my iPhone, my microphone, my ceiling, my cupboards, importing all that. And they're importing demand for our financial assets, for our real estate. Okay. That's how China had been supporting the United States' financial markets. Now, unfortunately, what that does is it creates a wealth gap. You're getting so much demand for US assets. The stock market's always going up. Real estate's always going up. So for those that own assets, the top 1%, the top 5%, the top 10%, they're just constantly getting richer, not necessarily doing anything for the world because people are always bidding up their assets. You know, you ever drive by a house and you see someone paid $20 million for that house? You say, $20 million? Who in their right mind is paying $20 million to live somewhere? China. And there's no one actually living there. They're investing and buying the thing because they're monetizing it. They're treating it as a savings account, not to actually live in the home. And so what does that do? That makes housing incredibly unaffordable for people that don't own assets. Because for people that don't own assets, they're getting increasingly poorer because all the things around them keep going up in price, but their wage, their salary doesn't keep going up to make it affordable. So the United States has the largest wealth gap in the world. The top 10% own 90% of the wealth because it's all in assets. So what Trump is trying to say is take your money, get out of here, stop dividing our country, stop creating this wealth gap of all the things on Jack's desk and in Jack's house. We need to start making some stuff in America. That's what's happening. So listen, is Trump trying to do a good thing? I think these things have to happen. It is a national security threat. Like the US can't even make its own weapons. If we are attacked, how are we going to defend ourselves if we can't make our own weapons? So it's gone too far. We need to bring industrial capabilities back into the country. We got to be able to produce some of our own stuff. We don't necessarily want to be the world reserve currency anymore. Let's move to a neutral reserve currency. Listen, the US is naturally rich, meaning we have a lot of food. We have a lot of materials. We can self-sustain ourselves. We don't need to import everything, okay? Unfortunately, there was a period of the United States where we lived outside of our means. A lot of people were getting a lot of shit without having to do the work to earn it. There was no proof of work because you could just print the money. So you could just print the money. And there are a lot of people that made a lot of money just owning assets, sitting on their ass, doing fuck all, and they got rich because other countries actually produced stuff, actually did work, and then took their profits and bought up all their assets. So your real estate investment went up only because China's just bidding it. And so the stock market's going to go down. Real estate's going to have lesser demand because you're taking all of the surplus of global trade and you're saying, stay out of our markets. We need to help the lower class. We need to rebuild an actual middle class. Okay. And you're seeing gold and Bitcoin start to decorrelate now because these are assets. Listen, if China has all this trade surplus, what are they going to do with it, guys? They can't put it in the US stock market or not. And also they don't want to. The US has started to weaponize the dollar system. When they sanctioned Russia, are you kidding? We're going to put trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars into your financial markets and you're going to sanction it, freeze it, and take it away from us? Fuck you. We're out. So no bueno on US stocks, no bueno on US assets. Where are you going to put it? Gold, Bitcoin. Gold, Bitcoin. It's been screaming it. Gold, Bitcoin, gold, Bitcoin. And then actually, in my opinion, I don't own any gold. Why would I own gold? Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. Next question. When you say China is propping up our assets, what does that mean practically? I can't tell if you guys are fucking with me. I just answered that, so I'm going to skip it. If you were Trump's political opposition with significant pull in the financial system, what would you be doing right now to keep the 10-year bond rate high? So listen, I will say this. If I were in charge, I would just be a lot more forward and honest and transparent about what has to happen, to be honest. I mean, here's the thing too, guys, is like guys like Bessent and Trump, they know everything I'm saying, but it's not very politically correct to say all of these things. Like, how many Americans are there? There's hundreds of millions of people out there voting. They don't understand this stuff. So, you know, what I would do is I would give a keynote presentation walking through the fact that being the world reserve currency isn't in our best interest anymore. It's dividing the country. It's making the poorer more poor, and it's making the rich wealthier in an undeserving way. There's no problem with people being wealthy. It's, are you providing value to the world in order to obtain and retain wealth? That's the only thing. And I would say, here's the plan. We got to reindustrialize some of our stuff. We have to make that conscious investment. We're going to need millions of hard hat workers that are trained and equipped in this country in the next 2 years. So we're going to print money and subsidize that. The first 2 million people that apply, you're going to get free tuition, a guaranteed job salary, and you're going to get housing to kick this off. And we got to start producing stuff. And that's inflationary. That's money printing. But I would say this is the game, guys. If you have excess capital, put it into Bitcoin. If you don't, here are government subsidized ways for us to get this show on the road. I would make real rates negative because I have to. So I would debase and devalue our debt. Again, highly inflationary, but I would try and make it up to banks by changing some rules. I would just buy a ton of Bitcoin as the government. I would do anything I could to make, the Bitcoin Act from Lummis go through. And I would transition towards a Bitcoin standard where the US is tech forward. It's pro-growth. It's pro-democracy. It's pro-inclusion. It's pro-equal rights. And I would make it so that we move to a technology that no one can control. The US would be really well positioned to contribute and be useful in this world because of our technology and our stance and our supposed lead in AI and all of Silicon Valley. I would real rates negative, debase the debt, and I'd just be honest and transparent. You have to. You have to. So what is this administration doing that, what are they not doing that I would? Being transparent, being forward, cutting their ties. I mean, listen, guys, someone has to lose. The notion that they're going to make everyone win is causing more problems. Like, we've borrowed a lot from our future. We have no growth to pay it back. Someone has to realize that loss. Someone at the table is a sucker. So in my opinion, we need real leaders to say, listen, this is the situation. We can be angry about it. We can cry about it, feel all the things you need to feel, but then we got to move on. Then we got to start fucking fixing shit. And this is not for the weak. This is not for the faint of heart. Here's what's going on. Here's how we're going to solve it. Follow me. We're going this way. That's what I would do. If we go into this phase of more printing and stagflation, how do you think this will last? Oh, how long do you think this will last? Eventually, the time to invest in Bitcoin and the golden opportunity will have passed. Listen, I hear a lot about, I'm late to Bitcoin. I've said this before. That's a problem with your ego. Saying you're late to Bitcoin is an ego test because Bitcoin doesn't keep attendance. Bitcoin doesn't keep time. Saying you're late is because you're comparing yourself to someone else. So my message to you is stop comparing yourself to your friends. Stop comparing yourself to your siblings. Stop comparing yourself to your coworker. Stop comparing yourself, especially to people on the internet that you've never met. And you don't even know how much of their life that they're selling to you is real. Stop comparing yourself to anybody. You are not late to Bitcoin. You are right on time because it's not a competition and it's not an ego test. Bitcoin, at the end of the day, is the only fixed supply thing you can own, period. You're never late because here's the thing, guys. Money is just your time and your energy in an abstracted form, okay? We all get up and we do valuable stuff for people, okay? Whether that's mowing a lawn, starting a business, being an accountant, helping someone with their taxes, making people sandwiches for lunch. We create value for those around us. In return for that value, we get money. So money represents your time, your energy, your effort, your labor, your work. Okay? At the end of the day, whether you know it or not, you have to make a decision of how you want that time, that energy, that work, that effort, that labor to be stored. If you store it in something like dollars, you're at risk of them printing more dollars and making your time, energy, effort, labor worth less. Okay? If you store it in something like Bitcoin, it could be volatile, but you're never at risk of anyone debasing it, making it worth less. In fact, over time, your time and energy just becomes more valuable. So you're never late. Every single day, I make a conscious decision to adopt Bitcoin because every day I get up and I work hard for the people around me, for my employees, for my investors, especially for my customers. And every day I could take that time and energy and put it in dollars, put it in Yu-Gi-Oh cards, put it in Rubik's Cubes. I choose Bitcoin. So Bitcoin doesn't keep attendance. Bitcoin's not about ego. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Wake up, be valuable to the world, and store it in a place that matters. You're not late. Will the Fed start doing treasury buybacks like Arthur Hayes is saying? Probably. They got to start doing something. And when Bessent comes out and says that they have to, when Bessent comes out and says they're willing to back the treasury market if the Fed isn't, basically the treasury market is going to get support. It's going to get artificial demand, whether it's from the Fed, from the treasury, or from the US banking system, or all of the above. So yeah, some version of that. Do you think MicroStrategy will decouple from the stock market too? I mean, it could. MicroStrategy is just, it's Bitcoin. So yeah, if Bitcoin decouples, MicroStrategy should decouple. How long would a Bitcoin strategic reserve realistically take to come to fruition? It depends. I mean, we got an executive order. We do technically have a Bitcoin strategic reserve. They said they would buy more. They haven't yet. So how long would it take for them to start buying some? Could have been done yesterday. Just hadn't happened. So these are, again, if I were in charge, it would be a priority. Words are always easier than actions. I don't know what it's like to be the president. I'm not claiming that I would be any better. I'd like to think I would, but of course, if I thought I'd be worse, what type of man would I be? So listen, these words are cheap. Everyone can run their mouth. So I don't know why or when or how, But at the end of the day, too, Bitcoin's not a political trade. Like, I don't own Bitcoin because of what someone in Washington, D.C. is going to do. Like, I own Bitcoin because, in my opinion, everything else in the world is abundant. There's going to be more of everything else in the world because there's going to be more demand. People want more dollars, we're going to make more. People want to find more gold, we're going to find more. People want more burgers, shirts, hoodies, cars, houses. The only thing no one can make any more of is Bitcoin. That's my thesis. Doesn't really matter anything else besides that. Who is selling Bitcoin right now? Clueless retail? It doesn't make sense with all the national and state governments and large corporations buying. What gives? Yeah, I mean, listen, when markets are distressed, people sell what they can, not what they want, okay? If you're on Wall Street and the market's moving around and you're getting a margin call where you're about to go under, it doesn't matter if you're bullish Bitcoin. You got to liquidate your portfolio, meet your margin call, and avoid bankruptcy. So, right? Like, here, if everyone's getting laid off, are you going to be homeless, or are you going to sell a little bit of Bitcoin to afford your mortgage payment so that your children and your wife aren't on the street? So when monetary conditions tighten, people sell what they can, not what they want. The cool thing about Bitcoin is you can always sell it 24/7, liquid, global, always liquidity. There's no circuit breakers. No one can take it from you. So it will always be something that people have to sell when they have to. That's just the reality of the game. So, I mean, I don't try and overanalyze markets of like who could possibly be selling. Someone that's forced to sell. They're lost. That sucks. Sorry for them. Hope they can get it back someday. Industry. Jeff Booth is now saying that if Bitcoin fails as a medium of exchange, then Bitcoin will fail. Saylor was recently asked the question, and he said it doesn't have to be a medium of exchange. Any added input outside of what you normally say? Yeah, I mean, I would say, listen, I don't love the notion that, it's up to anyone whether Bitcoin succeeds or fails. It's in the eye of the beholder. Like, Saylor doesn't care clearly to settle Bitcoin in a transactional sense. He doesn't care to have Bitcoin used as a currency in a lot of these emerging markets where it's getting adoption. Saylor doesn't give a shit. Cool. That's up to Saylor. I mean, I can sit and say, you should really go down to some of these markets in Africa, or you should really, go down and hear what these Bitcoiners and developers are building. But if he doesn't care, he doesn't care. What can I say about that? That's his opinion. Conversely, if there are people that say Bitcoin is most meaningful to me in a transactional sense, how can I convince them otherwise? Like, for someone like Saylor to say, no, you're wrong and I'm right. No, that's not true. Bitcoin is, and that's enough. Bitcoin just is. It is what it is, and you can't change it. You can only adopt it however you want to adopt it. It's up to you. So Bitcoin has succeeded, in my opinion, because it exists and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. That, to me, is success. Now, if you want to store all your value in it, but use dollars to transact, do whatever the fuck you want. But this notion that like grown adults are fighting about what's going to make it successful or not, waste of time. Waste of time. Neither of them can change it, and neither of them are the CEO of Bitcoin. Nobody is. Doesn't matter how bad you want to be. You're not. So it doesn't matter. How do you think adoption of Bitcoin will take off for normal people? Orange pilling is not enough. Is it just price that will bring more, or true economic hardships? I mean, I think I have an interesting take on this. I think Bitcoin is getting adopted at a rapid pace. I mean, the thing's been around for like 15 years and it's already worth almost $2 trillion. No marketing budget, no VC funding, no CEO, nothing. That is rapid adoption. And yeah, I think price is the best marketing we have. I'll tell you the best marketing. The best marketing we have is when you see someone with a nice house or a nice car or a nice vacation and you go, how the hell did they get that? And the answer is Bitcoin. Bitcoin. Think about that for a second, because a lot of the stereotype is, oh, crypto bros, blockchain bros, Miami. No. All they did was work their ass off, stay humble, and stack sats. And that's how they made their time and energy more valuable. That's the best marketing Bitcoin's ever had. A lot of my buddies that didn't listen to me when we were fresh out of high school, when I said, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. Guys, I'm telling my friends I grew up with, Bitcoin's $50. I'm screaming at them, buy. Come on, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Do you want to know when they bought? When they realized, shit, Jack's got a big empty closet. Shit, Jack's starting his own companies. Jack doesn't work for anybody. Jack's taking his girl to a nice vacation. How the hell did Jack do that? He got up, he worked hard, and instead of putting his time and energy in a melting currency, he put it in Bitcoin. That's the marketing game. Now, listen, I think we can make Bitcoin more useful. Like, I think Bitcoin back lending is a huge deal. You can put your money into something that has a compound annual growth rate of something like 30, 40, 50, 60%, and then you can borrow against it. So you never have to sell it, and you can monetize and finance things around you just by putting your money to work in the best performing thing. I think that's a huge deal. That's one example of making Bitcoin tremendously more useful to the world. Tremendously more useful. It could be collateral, liquid collateral to finance the things you need in your life. You need a surgery, you need to build a house, you need to start a company. Put your money in Bitcoin, borrow against it, move on with yourself. That's amazing. So we're still building financial tool sets around this thing. But I think Bitcoin's doing fine. 2 trillion in 15 years? What are we? That's crazy. That's faster growth than Amazon. That's faster growth than Google. That's faster growth than Apple. That's faster growth than any of these things. I don't know. You're comparing Bitcoin to like some sci-fi movie. I mean, it's doing great. All right. Ending it with some Strike questions. And I see one personal question. Strike, is it safe to leave our Bitcoin on Strike instead of moving it to cold storage? Listen, I keep a lot of Bitcoin on Strike. In a way, Strike is my self-custody because it's my company. We obviously think of ourselves as a very secure Bitcoin business. So I will say that. With that being said, we constantly advocate hold your own keys, withdraw. We offer free withdrawals. We are the most encouraging, in my opinion, of taking your coins off of our exchange, not just with our words, not just with our tweets, with our product. I will allow you to get your coins off the exchange for free, anytime, any day. Okay? So I will never, ever, ever, ever encourage anyone to hold their keys with anyone else other than themselves, period. Even if it's with me. Ever. So clip that, post it on Twitter. Ever. CEO of a global Bitcoin exchange says, hold your own keys. And we mean it. Not with just our words, not with just our tweets, with our product. You can withdraw all of your Bitcoin for free any day. Any day. Okay. And obviously we're not making money on that. We got to go pay the miner fee. But we mean it. We believe it. So I would say if you're capable, if you're confident, hold your own keys. Okay. If you're not, if you're scared, if you're new, we're happy to hold your Bitcoin for you. More than willing. It's a free service. When cash balance interest for the fiat in my Strike account? I have cash in there for DCAing or waiting for a target order to fill. It would be sweet if I got interest on sats. We can do that. You know, I know other companies do that. I would say our customers don't hold tons of cash. At least I don't. I don't hold any cash. So, you know, a lot of Strike products initially are built for me. I think it's the best way to build products is being a customer of your own product. I don't hold much cash, if any at all. So like all my paychecks come in through Strike, get converted to Bitcoin on the spot. I pay my bills with Strike Bill Pay, which pays my bills from my Bitcoin. So I don't hold any cash. I don't know why you would hold cash. If you're looking for interest on cash, if you're looking for a return on cash, you should just buy Bitcoin. I'd rather get 50% return a year by holding Bitcoin than get like 3% on holding cash. It just doesn't make any sense. So I don't know why, you know, people love that, but if we get enough requests, I mean, the approach we take at Strike is like our customers are always right. So if we get enough requests, it's something we can easily do. It's no big deal. Okay, personal question, and then I got to get out of here. We're close to the top of the hour. How has chess helped you as an entrepreneur? Oh, that's a great question. I think of chess as the art of seeing yourself forward. Okay. Chess is really the muscle of intuition, in my opinion. The art of seeing yourself forward has been immensely valuable in my life and as an entrepreneur, especially. It's the art of problem solving and ability to really manifest a future position or a future state that you want, that best positions you to win or to get out of a situation that you're looking for. So that would be my high level answer, is how I view the game of chess. I view the game of chess as the art of seeing yourself forward. And so when I practice and when I play and when I keep that muscle fresh and warm, it's really just exercising the art and the ability for me to see myself forward and manifest myself in the direction in which I think is beneficial for me, my employees, my investors, the world, for Bitcoin. So that's pretty much the big one. I mean, there's another really interesting idea in chess, in that every single move creates weaknesses and creates strengths. Like when you move a pawn forward, pawns can't go backwards. So never in that pawn's life will it be able to influence the squares it once was, because the squares it was influencing before are behind it forever. Now, conversely, when you move a pawn forward, it's now influencing squares that it's never been able to influence before. And so chess is this very interesting idea that, a bad or good move is only with context. It's not necessarily mathematical. Again, that's why I consider it an art, is that, moving, you could have one position where moving a piece is a brilliant move, and you can have one position where moving a piece is a losing move. And it's all dependent on the context of the board. And so there's pros and cons to anything you do. You can spend your whole life being an entrepreneur and living paycheck to paycheck and grinding and accruing, health issues and degrading and deflecting relationships in your life. It depends on what you want and what the rest of the board has in front of you to determine whether it's a good or bad move. So I would say that's useful as well. I don't know. Chess is a great game. Art of seeing yourself forward. That's how I would describe chess. All right. We're at the top of the hour. And with that, I'm out. Again, for the podcast listeners, I apologize. This is a highly visual episode. So if you're listening and you're confused and you thought this one stunk, head over to YouTube and give it a shot. I'll try to avoid too many visual episodes like this, because I know there's a lot of you on the podcast airwaves, but I couldn't help myself. A lot of interesting articles coming out about money printing, and it looks like Bitcoin's smelling blood. Thank you guys. It's always love. I appreciate it. I run a lot of companies. I do a lot of stuff. Monday afternoons, some of my favorite times of the week to just get on, cut loose, rant, answer questions, connect with you guys. It's a joy. It's a pleasure. So if you wouldn't mind hitting subscribe on my YouTube channel, it's just kind of like a personal goal and bet I have with myself that I'll get to 100,000 subscribers. We're almost a fourth of the way there. We're actually getting there. We're getting closer than I thought. So all the love, I really appreciate it. I read every single comment. I take the feedback seriously. You can't hurt my feelings. If you think there's a way the show could be better, you just let me know. And with that, it's a joy to ride this orange wave with you guys. Stay humble, stack sats, and I'll see you next week, same time.